Thank you for everything.
Mhm.
Hi, this is Shauna with Jeffco PTA, and we are here with Alistair Hawks, amazing mental health professional. She's actually accredited. We love her, we support her, and we would love for her to teach us everything. So go right ahead.
Awesome. Hey, good morning, everybody. So happy to be here with you. I'm going to talk a little bit about empowerment beyond parenting. I have started this new series of mental health support groups. I have decided and discovered that more people need support than I can provide one-on-one therapy for. So we're starting a series of groups. If you know anybody who's interested in a support group, this is one of the groups. Empowerment Beyond Parenting will be having Empowerment Beyond Anxiety, Empowerment Beyond PTSD, Empowerment Beyond Depression. And so check out my website, alistairmhawks.com, which is going live this week. So just to get started.
Organizing that so everybody can find you because you are such an amazing resource.
Thank you, Shauna. So I just wanted to start with a little humor. This little cartoon says, "So that's your advice, then just direct my feet to the sunny side of the street." And I just want to acknowledge that being happy isn't always easy unless you're born with a happy disposition. You really have to work at it. And when we're raising children, especially in times like these, we really need to empower them to see things optimistically and to be problem solvers on their own, and just empowering parents to take the bull by the horns and really give the children that they are parenting the tools that they need to be happy and optimistic and engaged and all of that kind of thing. I love this statement down here by Sigmund Freud: unexpressed emotions will never die. They are buried alive and will come forth later in uglier ways. And this is very, very true. I'm sure all of us have experienced it. I know that I myself have, where I just kind of put feelings on the back burner when I'm at work or when I'm in session with clients, and I just kind of have to bury them. But if we don't do our own stress management on a moment-to-moment basis, those feelings will come out backwards, whether it's being irritable with a coworker or with our partner or with our children, or whether we've stuffed so much that we actually have a blowout later where we just kind of freak out, or we have a panic attack, or we stay in bed for 3 days because we're depressed. We haven't expressed those things. We've depressed them. That's where depression comes from. So just really addressing the emotional state of ourselves, of our children, of the people that we are in proximity with on a moment-to-moment basis, and teaching the clear and direct expression of emotion is super, super helpful. So go ahead and change the slide, Shauna. This is a feelings wheel. You can find these all over the internet. I like to teach this in my Brainwise classes with the younger kids, where we do kind of this feeling wheels of fortune, where they'll spin the wheel and pick a feeling and they'll have to use it in a sentence. If you're parenting younger children, helping them develop a feelings vocabulary is really, really important. There are 5 main emotions. This actually has 6. Peaceful, I love that. But if you remember the movie Inside Out, we've got anger, fear, sadness, joy, and disgust. And all of those feelings kind of radiate out in these more subtler and subtle expressions. And so helping even yourself, if you're not quite sure how to express what it is that you're feeling, get in touch with those feelings and learn how to speak them directly. I see parents helping their kids, like siblings speak to each other, like, that's really irritating or that's really annoying. And we want to carry that further and be able to express things like joy, like peacefulness, like sadness. On here, I was noticing there's stupid, and that's like a 3rd tier level of sadness. And I know a lot of children feel stupid. And when your child comes to you and say they feel stupid about something, help them understand that they don't have to know everything, that that's what school is for. That's what life is for, is learning these things. And that feeling of stupid, or that self-talk of stupid, can really affect the nervous system and cause emotional stress. So help your child develop a feelings vocabulary. This is kind of obvious maybe for high functioning people. Uh, sources of kids' stress. This is really important to understand. Sometimes we're not sure. Sometimes I'm not sure what's happening with my 17-year-old daughter. She's not an open book anymore. And it's really important to understand the things that are stressing our kids out, taking tests, not having enough privacy, needing more independence, even the birth of a sibling or moving can be super duper stressful. That's kind of obvious, I hope. Remarriage, when a parent remarries, or when parents get married for the first time, if they've had children before that's happened, not having enough money. This is a real big source of stress, not just for the adults in the family, but for the kids as well. There's this book written called, I'll have to get you the title of it, but it talks about poverty, poverty stress, and it really can affect the children too, because they see what's happening, or they're asking for things and they're not able to get them. Or a teacher who doesn't like you. When I was working in the public school system, teaching 40 classes a week, I was in 40 classrooms a week, and I got to witness a whole bunch of different teachers' styles with their children. And some teachers are really excellent at being open and flowing and loving with every student, but not all teachers are great at that. So helping your kids understand the sources of their stress, and of course, common sources of parent stress. This kind of feels like a no-brainer, but COVID's at the top there. Who knew in 2020 we would all be dealing with this little tiny virus that is wreaking havoc across the entire planet? And work, relationship issues, kids, low salaries, excessive workloads. Speaking of low salaries, I don't know anybody who's stressed out about making too much money. If you know anybody who is, let me know, because I'd love to interview them. Work that isn't challenging or is engaging, lack of social support, not having enough control over job-related decisions or family-related decisions even, or conflicting demands, or unclear performance expectations. It's really important to understand your own sources of stress. So, symptoms of stress. This is super important. I know that we've talked about this when we talked about coping strategies, but it's important to kind of reiterate that the symptoms of stress have a residual effect. So if you have some nervous system activation and you're able to deal with it in the moment, then your nervous system will come back to baseline. But if you're not able to deal with that stress on a moment-to-moment basis, you can develop chronic conditions such as high blood pressure, or their heartburn is on there, or that GERD stuff where your stomach acids are actually eating away the lining of your esophagus, and it creates this chronic issue, or autoimmune diseases that are really triggered by stress. And if we go back and we look at the underlying causes of our stress, or the sources of our stress, and really address those directly, then the likelihood that we will develop these chronic conditions is way lower. So there's just a list for you. Teeth grinding, I do that. When I was in a graduate school, I had to have a night guard fit for me so that I wouldn't break my teeth off. Feeling overwhelmed just seems so basic, but when you're overwhelmed, you haven't dealt with probably 5 to 10 earlier stressors. You don't go from no stress to overwhelm. You have to look at those little steps of what's getting you to overwhelm. So symptoms of stress. Next slide, please. How stress affects the body. This is, again, when you're not dealing with stress on a moment-to-moment basis, there is an actual physical correlation to the emotional trigger, and it affects your skin, your stomach. Maybe you're having stomach issues, or maybe you have ulcers, hopefully not. Your pancreas, all of the sugar, the systems with diabetes start there in the pancreas. The immune system, when you are stressed out, your immune system is affected. And so just thinking back to COVID, we've all got this kind of low level stress about how to keep ourselves and our family members safe, how to keep our community members safe. And every time we're worrying about that, we're throwing a drop in the bucket of residual stress, and it's affecting our immune system. So please take care of your stress. And if you can, take some preventives like zinc, like vitamin D, I've heard is really good at boosting the immune system, and just kind of following your own personal practices about keeping your immune system strong. Anybody feel like that?
From time to time, right? And just so you know, everybody, Alistair did say that if you have questions throughout, she would like you to interact with her.
Yeah. And before you go to the next slide, I just wanted everybody to know that I woke up this morning thinking there's really only 3 of these slides that I want to show you, because I want it to be more of a dialogue. I want to really help you address the things that you're interested in knowing versus just kind of giving you information that I think is important. So as we kind of rush through these slides, please know that at the end, I would love to be in dialogue with you about things that really matter to you directly. Okay.
Beautiful.
Next slide, please. So this is one of the best tools you can find. Parenting Kids with Love and Logic. Love and Logic is an excellent tool for high functioning families. It does not work well for families that are disorganized, for families that are in extreme stress and chaos, only because it really takes the parents' awareness and mindfulness about parenting. But there's a website, the Love and Logic Institute. There are articles that you can get for free, like this little one right here, which is how I made this slide, Preparing Kids for the Teen World. So this is specifically written for younger kids, tweens who are heading into teenage years, but it's really great for all ages, I think. And so giving your child as few rules as possible, but as many as absolutely necessary. It's important to understand that if you're on one end of the spectrum of parenting, say you're an authoritarian parent, say you were raised by somebody who was in the military, and it is like, cross your T's, dot your I's. These are the boundaries. You may not move out. You may not move beyond them. Or if you're on the passive parenting side of the scale, both types of parents are going to get rebellious children, because the kids who are raised by authoritarian parents are looking for freedom. And the kids who are raised by more passive parents are looking for boundaries and expectations. And so our goal as parents is really to walk that middle line, to give enough rules, but not so many rules that they're fighting against us. All right. And the Love and Logic Institute has lots and lots of ideas about ways. Please go back to that other slide.
Okay.
The Love and Logic Institute has lots and lots of ways that you can learn how to speak with your kids in loving and logical ways, where your kids actually get to become part of the decision-making process, and they learn to think through problems before they come to you with them. They gave an example of a kiddo who stole a credit card and made some purchases and then got in trouble for it. And what the mom said, the Love and Logic way, was, "Oh my gosh, sweetie, that sounds so hard. Would you like me to go to the police station with you and hold your hand while you tell your story?" And the kid was like, "Well, no, Mom, can't you just get me a lawyer?" And the mom says, "Oh, honey, I just love you too much to let you miss out on this experience of how the real world works." And so really handing responsibility to our children for the choices they make and the consequences that come from those choices. One of the lessons that we teach in Brainwise is rewards and consequences, and we talk a whole lot about choices, the choices you make and what will happen when you make those choices, and what a reward is and what a consequence is, so that they can start thinking through certain kinds of problems and what consequences might be. Letting natural consequences occur. And it says wise parents impose consequences to take care of themselves. And I really think this means being clear, saying what you mean, meaning what you say, and really only saying it once. You don't have to say, "Do I need to tell you again?" or "I've told you 3 times. And they give another example of a kiddo who needed to be told 3 times before they actually mobilized and did what the parents needed them to do. And then they went out to a teen party and got drunk and drove home drunk and died because there wasn't somebody to tell them 3 times that that wasn't something that they should be doing. So helping our kids understand that you mean what you say, these are the rules, and you don't get 3 tries. You know, that's what life is about. When you've got younger children, you want to give them enough freedom so that they learn how their choices create these consequences in their lives, so that when they get older, they are understanding that process. Getting the Go back.
Go back. Sorry.
It's okay. You're on fast forward today. Get the child's opinions and thoughts first. This is super important. If you get your kiddo involved in the decision-making process, then they have buy-in for whatever the consequence is. When you're just unilaterally making decisions and dishing out consequences, then the kids, you know, they may take it because they respect you, but they don't quite understand how it got to be that way. And so when you ask them, I love to ask my kids or my students, what do you think is a good consequence for that choice? Or what do you think is a good punishment for that choice? And they think, oh, and blah, blah, blah. And it's often more severe than what you would dish out. And so give them a little opportunity to have some buy-in and some engagement with the decision-making process, and you will have a lot more cooperation. And then again, say what you mean and mean what you say, and only say it once. Next. Okay, another book. This was written, I feel like I want to show it to you. This was written by some Jeffco mothers, Slow Parenting Teens. And it's a fabulous short read. It's teeny tiny. And it talks about the slow parenting is more like the, you know, fast food, slow food. This is fast parenting, slow parenting. And fast parenting would be more like, I'm going to make the decisions and I'm going to dish out the consequences. Whereas slow parenting would be, I'm going to get my kiddo involved in the decision-making process so that they have buy-in. Talks about stewarding your teen, teaching discernment and good judgment. These are life skills that really need to be taught, and they aren't that difficult to teach. I'm sure all of our PTA parents are really good at teaching them, but when our kids are, many of our families in the community are not great at stewarding their teens, teaching discernment and good judgment. Common sense is not very common. It is something that you have to really develop an understanding of. So stewarding your teen, helping them understand what discernment is. Discernment means to decide what is right and what is true and what is good. So helping them learn those life skills. Respecting their personalities. I think sometimes parents feel disappointed at how their kids are growing up. I have a family in therapy right now where the mom is really, really disappointed that her daughter is gay. And the daughter has known since she was 5 years old that she was gay, but she never got to come out on her own. Somebody outed her. And now there's this huge conflict and mom's disappointed and she's depressed and she's sad about it, when really the kiddo is just being herself. And so when we can respect the personalities of our kids, then they get the experience of feeling valued no matter what is going on in their personality. So loving that in the Slow Parenting Teens book. Catching them doing it right is such an awesome concept. I learned this firsthand when I was working with kids in residential treatment, kids who are coming out of youth corrections or who had gotten caught up in the human services system, like through foster care or something like that. And in residential treatment, everybody is telling them what they're not doing well. Don't do that. Don't do this. Don't do that. And when I started trying to catch kids doing things right, I was able to help turn around some of the most difficult behaviors in children, like kids who are constantly needing that needy, I need your attention, I need it now, and to the detriment of everybody else in the milieu. So having those kids, really telling them, like, I will speak to you when you follow my direction. And not saying anything else to them. I will speak to you when you follow my direction. I will speak to you when you go to your room like I asked you to. And then ignoring everything else, not like stop, 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 but I will speak to you when you go to your room like I asked. And when they go to their room, I say, thank you for going to your room. That's awesome. I love it when you listen to me. And it really only took a few times for that kid to get that the positive reinforcement felt way better than the negative, just negative, so much negative input. So try to catch your kids doing things right. Like, thank you for cleaning up your room without me asking. Thank you for putting away the dishes without me asking. Thank you for doing your chores without me asking. Oh, I noticed you did your homework without me even having to ask you to do that. That's awesome. Good job. Now we've got time to do something fun. So catch them doing it right, and you will have that positive interpersonal dynamic with them. Being an effective listener. When we really listen to what our kids are saying, instead of waiting for them to finish what they're saying so that we can tell them what's true, then we're also going to open that line of communication deeper. Sometimes people just want to be heard. They don't want you to jump right in and fix it. They want you to just listen to what's happening to them in their life. Like, tell me what's going on at school today, sweetie. And she'll say it. And instead of me saying, oh, that's terrible, maybe you should do this with Mackenzie, she doesn't want to hear that. She just wants me to say, wow, that sounds really hard, or it sounds like you had a really great day. So become a really effective and good listener, and you will have that positive interaction with your kiddo. Parenting every day versus sometimes I know that I feel overwhelmed. I have been really burning the candle at both ends for the last 10 days with working full time and then having this class at night from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. and then not having a whole bunch of extra time really to even think for myself, teaching at PTA at 9 o'clock on Saturday morning or teaching at Helping Kids Thrive on Thursday. And it's really easy for me to just kind of let the kiddo go off on her own and do her own thing, but remembering to touch in and touch base. And luckily she's 17 and I don't have to feed her anymore and I don't have to remind her to do certain things, but touching base and touching in and making sure that your kiddo knows that even though you are burning the candle at both ends, you are still their parent and you're here and they matter and their issues are important too. So just remembering to parent every day. Setting appropriate limits and punishments. Again, this is on that continuum of authoritarian and passive parenting. You really want to make sure that your kids understand clearly what the limits and expectations and punishments will be, consequences if they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. And then slowing down, just slowing down. There's so much speed in what's happening today with, all of I look at my news feed and there are 27 different headlines. And what do I pick first? So you just scroll through all of them. And they're having the same experience where they're on YouTube or they're on Instagram and it's just scroll, 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 scroll. And there's so much information coming in. This goes back to teaching about discernment and good judgment and just helping all of us, helping each other slow down. Next slide, Shauna. The Search Institute. This is one of my favorite organizations. I found this probably 25 years ago when they were just starting to do their research on the 40 developmental assets. They have surveyed schools, they have surveyed groups, they have surveyed community members across the country, and they have boiled these surveys down to 40 developmental assets. And their research shows that these assets, the more assets that you have, the more protective factors you have against risks that children meet every single day in life. And so I sent this to Shauna and she can send it on to you. There are 40 developmental assets. This one happens to be for ages 8 to 12, but there are developmental assets for birth to, I think, 4, and then 4 to 8, 8 to 12, and then 12 to 19. And why I like to teach this is it's more of a prevention and wellness perspective. I have given this sheet to students in my classroom and asked them to just kind of put a check mark by the assets that they think that they have. And it's really enlightening to see what kids feel strongly that they've been given as an asset. And some kids don't have very many assets. Some kids have a whole bunch of assets. There are external assets, there are internal assets. The external assets are around support, empowerment, boundaries, expectations, and constructive use of leisure time. And I'll just give you a couple of specifics in them, like the support would be family support, a caring neighborhood, a caring school climate, parent involvement in schooling, having a positive other adult relationships. So helping your child develop relationships with healthy, safe adults in the community so that when they are not feeling like they want to talk to you, they have other people that you would actually approve of to talk to. So this might be.
Alistair, I'll just say we actually talk about that in our suicide prevention training as well. Because, when our kids get to those teenage years, it's not about you. So you're not being a bad parent, but your teenager is seeking that independence, or even a tween seeking that independence. So it is normal for them to have someone else, maybe it's a friend's parent that they talk to and develop that trusted adult relationship with.
Yes.
So I just like to make sure that our parents know it's not about you, or you're not a bad parent.
Absolutely. And when you've played a part in helping them develop those relationships, then you already know that you trust that person. So you know that they're talking with people that you trust as well. Yeah. And you're helping them learn discernment for who are healthy people and who are not healthy people.
Yep.
Yes. Under empowerment, things like children as a resource. The child is included in decisions at home and in the community. This is an empowering way that we can help our kids know that they can feel effective in their lives, and service to others, helping them know that they're not the only one who's having problems. So helping them help other people solve problems. Under boundaries and expectations, things like school boundaries, neighborhood boundaries, family boundaries, having positive adult role models. Under constructive use of leisure time, having creative activities, child programs, time at home. All of those would be external assets. And the more assets they have externally, the fewer risk factors that they will have. And which is excellent. It's an empowerment thing where we know that our kids are going to be able to be healthy adults without us. And the internal assets, I really love this: commitment to learning, positive values, social competencies, and positive identity. In commitment to learning, one of them is reading for pleasure. I mean, that's awesome. When your kids really pick up a book on their own accord, then you know that they have this commitment to learning and they have this interest in learning as a lifelong skill and pleasure. Again, homework, bonding to school, these are commitment to learning assets. Positive values, things like equality and social justice, helping our kids know that there are larger issues to be addressed. And I think many of our tweens and teens already see, with the Black Lives Matter, with things that are happening in politics, with COVID-19, they are understanding that they are part of a larger global community, which is wonderful and sad all at the same time. And I'm really excited to see how some of our children engage as leaders in the community.
Yep.
Social competencies, things like planning and decision making, these are skills that aren't necessarily innate in all of us. I had to learn organization. I didn't really learn it until college, which means that in high school and middle school, I was not the best student because socializing was way more important. But teaching our kids planning and decision making, interpersonal competencies, helping them understand that everybody feels shy, everybody feels like it's tricky when they walk into a room of people that they don't necessarily know, and teaching them how to overcome those things so that they have this social competence where they can walk into a place where they don't know anybody and they can introduce themselves and they know how to keep themselves busy or how to engage so that they don't avoid those situations. Cultural competence, children know and are comfortable with people of different racial, ethnic, and cultural backgrounds, and with their own cultural diversity. So helping them understand their differences and their similarities. And peaceful conflict resolution. This is all part of social competency. And then positive identity, having personal power, having self-esteem, having a sense of purpose, having a positive view of their personal future. Really excellent stuff. I encourage all of you to download this when Shauna sends it to you, and just do a little check by all of the things that you feel like your child may have, and then give it to them, give a blank copy to them, and have them check it. And if they have all of them, yay. If they don't have any of them, yay. Then help them learn them, because these are the things that are going to prepare them for the real world. Okay.
And just so everybody knows, we'll have the video page up with a recording of this video probably in the next week. And I will add that as a file to download underneath Alistair's video here.
Beautiful. Okay, next slide.
Maybe. There we go.
Breathe. Everybody breathe right now. 3 deep breaths down in your diaphragm. This is one of the most important skills that you can teach your child, really. It is the foundation for stress management when you can take a few deep breaths, get yourself re-engaged in your prefrontal cortex, help your nervous system calm itself down. Breathing is something we do naturally, but it's part of the autonomic nervous system, which operates underneath your conscious awareness. So it's just kind of humming along in the background. And when we are triggered emotionally and we go into fight, flight, or freeze, we either hold our breath, that's me, or we start breathing fast and really shallow, or we constrict everything down and we just start taking really just like sip breaths. And so teaching your child how to breathe before they're upset. I had somebody in Helping Kids Thrive say, how do I get my kid to calm down when they're having a tantrum? That's really hard to do because they're already in fight, flight, or freeze. So we want to practice taking deep breaths every single day before we start freaking out. I say 3 to 5 deep breaths first thing in the morning, 3 to 5 deep breaths last thing at night before you go to bed. And anytime throughout the day that you feel like you're going up that emotions elevator, take those 3 to 5 deep breaths. And what you're doing is you're recalibrating that emotional brain. You're letting your autonomic nervous system know that the aware, awake part of you has stress management under control. So breathing feels so simple that it's easily dismissed as a coping strategy, but it's really the foundation of stress management. Next slide. Wizard and lizard brain, we could go into this again and again and again. Just remember that once your limbic system is triggered, your prefrontal cortex gets a wet blanket thrown on it. And it's really hard to stay present when you're emotionally triggered. So using those coping strategies like breathing, like using high intensity exercise to just kind of dump all of that nervous system arousal can help your prefrontal cortex stay engaged. And then just having work-life balance, remembering to take care of yourself, having a full life. When you have a full life, make sure that you're keeping things into perspective, making sure that nutrition is a priority, especially for our teenagers. If you've given them a good foundation for what good nutrition looks like, then they will, even after they've, drank 3 Coca-Colas and had 5 donuts, when they go to college, they'll start recognizing how drinking 3 Coca-Colas and eating 5 donuts really makes them feel. I remember a time when I was teaching over at Lasley Elementary, and it was like the end of the school year and there were donuts in the teacher's lounge all the time. And I think I probably ate a donut every single day that week, and I felt like crap. And I started talking to other people about it, and somebody said to me, we call them do nots. So I started, every time I saw those donuts, I was like, do not eat that donut. Do not eat that donut. Yeah. Eating good food makes us feel good. Eating yucky food makes us feel yucky. So take care of yourself, guys. Exercises and practices, we have talked about these. I'm happy to go through these with you again. We went through them when we were talking about stress management. I'm not sure that it's important to do that now. I really want to get to what you feel is important to discuss today. And if anybody wants me to reiterate how to use any of these coping strategies, I'm happy to do that.
Actually, one of the things that would love to bring up. So it's just in the moment when a child is maybe melting down, making bad decisions, we have that reaction reflex sometimes to, hit the grounding button, and you're staying home and there's, no more kids night out and you're not doing this, which actually negatively impacts us as well. I mean, we're actually punishing ourselves. And, I just like to make sure that we try to refocus ourselves so that you don't punish yourself as a parent too, when you probably need the break just as much as the child does. So don't, ground them from the kids' night out before you think it through.
Well, and the thing about it is when depending on what the situation is, if it's a safety issue, for sure, ground them and do whatever you feel is appropriate as a parent. But if we're talking about a kiddo who's been overwhelmed, they've been studying for the SAT, they just took the SAT, they've had, they're isolated from their friends, all they see is their mom and dad and their siblings anymore. And, all of that stuff can be super duper stressful. If they're having a meltdown, if they're being disrespectful, definitely we want to nip the disrespect in the bud, but maybe they're just discharging energy, and remind them after they're finished, it's not okay to disrespect me. What do you think is a good consequence for disrespect? And get their buy-in about that. But when you're in the moment, you're just going to have a fight and a power struggle. Calm down, calm down. I don't want to calm down. I don't want to calm down. Go to your room. I'm not going to my room. Okay. And wait until maybe you remove yourself from the situation. All right. Love and logic says, when you feel better, I'd be happy to talk with you about this. And then you leave the situation so that you're not in a power struggle. When we would witness power struggles in residential treatment, another counselor would say to the counselor who's in a power struggle with a kid, hey, you have a phone call. And that counselor would be like, oh, thank you. I'll be right back, And really it was just like, let's get this person out of the power and control struggle with a kid. Remember, you're the adult and you don't need to power struggle with your kid, but sometimes they don't know how to discharge all of that energy without blowing up. And then once they're done blowing up, you talk with them about it. What just happened? Do you know what happened? This is what I saw. What do you think we should do about this? Okay, once everybody's calmed down. It's impossible to deal with those things when everything's hot.
Yeah. And you actually cover a lot of the things, which is part of the reason why mental health has been our priority this year too. A lot of the practices that you talk about actually are exactly in line with our suicide prevention trainings.
Yes.
And it's so important for everyone to be talking about this with the rates that we have in Colorado.
Absolutely. And I just want to emphasize again that if you're managing stress on a moment-to-moment basis every single day, when you feel overwhelmed, it's going to be way easier for you to bring your nervous system arousal down. But if you're not doing anything, then you will always be hitting that bell. You will always be at a 10, and it'll be nearly impossible to bring it back down because you're always riding high on that emotions elevator. And so we want to make sure that we're resourcing ourselves before we need the resources.
Awesome. Anyone else want to add in or ask questions? Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I just earlier in the presentation you talked about that it's good for a kid to have an outlet like another parent, a safety valve or whatever. And after you said that, it occurred to me just in the last couple of months how much I personally am doing that with other people, and other people are doing it with me.
Yeah,
there's so much crisis. I mean, it's so easy. It's so nice to have somebody that you can talk to and even just vent.
Yes.
Not in the middle of the storm that you're in.
Yes.
And sometimes, when you talk to those people, or those people are talking to you, the fact that they're not in the middle of your crisis, they can offer really insightful advice. And
absolutely.
It's been a key thing that's getting me through the panic.
Wonderful. And you're in service to each other in that way.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Wonderful. That's great. Glad for you.
Definitely second that one, Mike. So Mike's one of my people. He's
Yay.
Sean is one of mine.
an adult too. So, and PTA is pretty special that way in that we are, a family. So, I mean, if there's not someone at your local unit, there's someone at Jeffco PTA who's always here to listen to you.
I'm so happy for you guys that you have this family. It's a community, and it's really, I think this is one of the blessings of COVID, is it's really made what's essential obvious, and people are engaged in their community in different ways. I went for walks with my brother and my daughter more often this past spring and summer than we ever did before, and it's like, okay, this is what's essential right now. Yeah, and caring for each other is essential.
Mm. Yep. And taking those deep, calming moments and just going to do something for you.
Yes, exactly. Okay, next slide. Great, resilience. Look at that little thing growing up from that crack in the sidewalk there. Perseverance, no matter what the odds, creates resilience. This is so important, especially in these times. And so just staying engaged, teaching your kids the skill of determination and persistence will help them build that resilience that we want them to have. And these are all the resources, just some really excellent authors and books for you to take a look at.
And this will be all up on the website. I'll have a copy of PDF of this presentation too, so you can access this list.
Wonderful.
Well, does anyone have any questions for Alistair? Some of the things I like to make sure that, parents, one of the things that I did for my daughter when she was younger and in elementary school was empowering your kids is pretty important. I did things like I stopped making her lunch. So when she was in 4th grade, because she totally had the skills to do that herself. She knew what she would want to eat later in that day. And I did not. So rather than deal with I don't like the lunch you packed for me, let her make her own lunch. And she was incredible at it. And she actually developed a skill that most of the kids in her class did not have at the time because she was taking care of that for herself.
That's awesome. That's a great example of that. I want to piggyback on that. My daughter told me last year that she wanted to go vegan, and I looked at her and I said, I just bought a quarter of a cow with your aunt. So I don't know how to go vegan. So if you want to go vegan, you better teach me how to do that. And so she has started taking cooking into her own hands, which is wonderful, where she says, let's eat vegan tonight. And this is what we need at the grocery store. She will even go get it, which takes a whole errand off of my to-do list. So yay that you did that. And I'm just so grateful that my daughter's engaged in that kind of thing too. Yeah. How else have you all empowered your kids? I'd love to know.
I just wanted to say, kind of going with that question is, I really like the resource with the feelings wheel because, especially over these last few months with my older son who's in 3rd grade now, he's had a lot of emotions and had a really hard time with talking about it and identifying it. And even like recently he was like, I feel so like, and he can't say it, he doesn't know. And he's like, I just feel like crying all the time and I don't even know why. And so, we had a conversation around it, and I feel like something like the feelings will help with identifying even deeper what those feelings are and why. And, we know some of it's because, he's remote learning and he doesn't get to have that time with his friends physically, being able to interact with them. And so that's really hard. And, but getting down to that, I feel like is a way to help him.
Wonderful. And I encourage you to print it out or find one on the internet that you can print out, have it laminated or stick it in a little plastic sleeve and hang it on your refrigerator. And every day look at a new feeling and define it together and use it in a sentence so that you are all learning these like subtle nuances of what anger is, subtle nuances of what sadness is.
I'm just going to note here too, if anybody who's took the time to take this workshop right here today, If you want to get a copy of that right away so that you can start using it, since you have taken the time to register for this, I will forward this attachment to you today. So just let me know if you'd like to make sure that you see it today. You can get a hold of me by emailing president@jeffcopta.org, and I'll just forward it on to you after our classes end today at 2 o'clock.
Awesome. Yeah, great feedback. Love that.
Oh, yeah. Well, you are wonderful, so phenomenal. We learn so much from you on a regular basis. Please do make sure that you are practicing those coping strategies with your kids in times of calmness. So not necessarily in times of crisis or trauma, so that you make this a normal, it
normalizes it.
Yes, it needs to be normalized. So the same as we encourage talking about suicide openly, and discouraging that, discouraging the, dramatic talk about, oh, I should just end it all. We want to call our kids on that, but we also want to call our kids on some of these things as well. So thank you so very much.
My pleasure.
You are such a gift to us, and we so appreciate this. Our kids get brainwise in school, but we don't always get that information as parents at home. So you have been truly a gift and a wonderful partner to us for the last year, and I so appreciate you.
Well, Shauna, I feel the same way. Thank you all for coming, and thank you for listening, and thank you for your feedback. And please reach out to me via Shauna, or I have a new website going live. I think it's alistairmhawks.com. And I would be more than happy to be in dialogue with you about parenting issues, mental health
website.
issues.
Yep, we will put your website also underneath that, because especially when you start telling me about this empowerment series, I think this is going to be really, really helpful to a lot of people. And you all know that we encourage, dialogue with accredited mental health professionals. Alistair, boy, the first time I saw you present a year and a half ago, it honestly just shocked me, because my daughter, when she would have meltdowns in elementary school, I knew that, there were coping strategies, and she was being taught those things. And every time she would have that meltdown, I would say, come on now, use your coping strategies. And as involved as I am, so to the point where some kids actually thought I was the assistant principal in the school, they actually, I didn't know what the coping strategies because nobody told me that. So I never slowed down to take the time to say, okay, what are they? So what are you teaching them? Because I can't model that at home. Yes. So please learn them. Please ask the questions so that you can be the support system, because they'll use it. They will use it if you model it, and it becomes normalized.
They will. Awesome. This is the bridge. Yay. Build a bridge and get over it.
Right. All right. Well, I will stop our recording here. But again, so very grateful to you.
Yes, same. Grateful for you all.